Welcome, Dynamic Current Media viewers, to another episode of Insight. You are here with your host, Daniel Hayes, and
Andrew Blackmer.
This show is brought to you by Octet Solutions, as well as Blissful Blessings Events. So, Andrew, another week.
Another week. A lot of stuff going on in the world.
Absolutely.
In our viewers' worlds, right?
Yeah, they live in pretty much the same world we do, I think, most of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I mean, they could be Martians. But most of them.
Who knows who's getting this signal, right?
I mean, you know, the internet is pretty widespread these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about education, right? We try to educate our viewers about a variety of things.
I think it's something that's probably pretty close to home for a lot of viewers.
Right.
Some people are in school right now or planning on going to school.
Yeah.
Maybe have siblings in school.
Yeah, specifically higher education. We're talking about colleges, universities here. And there are some disturbing trends. We've noticed that a lot of majors and programs have been cut recently or are in danger of being eliminated. So, I was looking at a couple different universities in college, like, for instance, University of Texas is eliminating their Greek major, and a couple others are up on the chopping block.
Is that Greek language?
Because
a lot of people, get confused when you say Greek.
Right, right. Well, they're doing Greek history, but they're also eliminating some of the language classes for Greek. So, it's sort of rolled up into one because they are required to take...
Right, yeah, really. Absolutely.
Yeah, so you have that. You also have, I believe it was Bryant College. They're getting rid of some of their programs, and here's really my problem with that sort of thing. The rhetoric coming out of the administration and some of the people who are doing the financial analyses are talking about cutting the fat. This is with regard to budget issues that universities are facing and programs that are not making as much money as, comparatively speaking to other programs where there are fewer students and there are fewer students graduating with those degrees, and they're looking for ways to save money. But the way I look at it is, higher education, this creates, or at least should create, well-rounded individuals, intellectuals, free thinkers, and college, unlike, maybe grade school, for instance, gives young people and old people an opportunity to study whatever it is that they want to study, educate themselves, develop themselves, follow whatever path they choose. And now it looks like those choices are being limited as a result of financial constraints.
Absolutely. I think we should probably take it one step back and say, college enrollment is at an all-time high, in this country. And they're all, paying money for tuition, housing. Where's all that money going? If there's supposed to be fat being trimmed, right?
Right.
Where's the money going? And what you'll see in a lot of schools is money is being funded into administrative costs. The president, his assistants, people like that, fancy dorms, new buildings, all of that stuff. It's being funded into that rather than being funded or funneled into professors, teaching assistants, things like that. That are actually the purpose of the school in the first place, which is to educate the students.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one, that we have to really call it what it is and say, what it is that there are, vested interests who say, we want our slice of the pie, right?
Mm.
And the second part of it is that colleges are trying to race to get more students in majors that they think are going to give them instant career potential, so that they can inflate their stats. From to say, 80% of our graduates are getting jobs, right?
Right.
And that also ties into more money. because then you get more donors who are going to give you money and more endowment, all of that stuff, right? So it's all, a big scheme for funneling money into the people who want the money, right?
Right.
So that's really what's going on here, and unfortunately, there's a lot of majors that might not give you instant career potential 6 figures that are getting put on the chopping block.
Right.
I went to George Mason. I know you went to George Mason, and there are majors there that are always under threat.
Yeah, we were certainly part of the humanities, liberal arts program. I came out of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. I studied journalism. So something like that, it's industry that's retracting. There's not a whole lot of money to be made in it. But if they cut it, that would have been terrible for me if I were still in school at the time.
Absolutely.
I think you bring up 2 good points. One is, where's the money going, right? And looking at some of the costs that colleges are being, faced with now, that they didn't have to bear as much of a burden in the past, is maintenance costs, just for buildings, okay? Renovating buildings, maintaining buildings, creating new buildings, very large costs, which typically the state would pick up the majority of the tab. But in light of the recession that we experienced around 2008, 2009, these states have really stepped back and have reduced funding to a lot of these colleges. So these colleges, who were at the time sort of just waiting for the state to step up and do this maintenance for all of them, are left holding the bag. So they're catching up. They're years behind. They're putting tons of money into, like you had mentioned, we graduated from George Mason. I graduated in 2008. So going back just a couple weeks ago, the place was hardly recognizable. They have new parking lots. They have 6,000 new dorm rooms. They've got all these restaurants on campus.
Absolutely.
It was I couldn't even find my way around anymore. So
it's a lot of people with a lot of important people who want buildings, right?
Right.
All different names and all these things, right?
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff they can't afford flat out, so they're rationing up debt. According to studies done just a couple of years ago, 2010, schools are $60 billion in debt, and I'm sure that's more now. And what are they doing? Passing that along to their students. At the time, that averaged out to be about $13,000 extra per student. And we see this education bubble expanding now. Like you mentioned, more people are in college now than ever, pretty much.
Absolutely.
So, the demand for it is very high, and as a result, or at least partially is a factor, the costs are increasing.
Also, a lot of these schools are very, very old, and they have developed, and what happens when you have old institutions is that they develop a antipathy to change and evolution and development. And, you see a lot with these schools is, they're not looking at ways to help improve the student experience, and whether that means adding majors or keeping majors like Greek. Or in my case, religious studies, or in your case, journalism, communications, right? They're not looking to do that because, these are old institutions that, it's inertia basically, right? It's just going to keep flowing, and that's another problem that the schools really need it's not just colleges, but we're talking about colleges now. They really need a swift.
Kick in the pants.
Yeah, I would say so. To figure out, hey, what, we can't keep doing things this way.
Because people are paying more and getting less.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's important. It's important to get the most out of your college experience.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, for a lot of what colleges offer as part of the college experience, they do it very poorly.
Yeah.
They're a very inefficient landlord, for example, right? The college dorms are more expensive than you probably could get a regular apartment.
Oh, absolutely. It's ridiculous.
So, they're doing things, and packaging it all together as the student experience where it's not really, they're not really a good servicer of those provider of those services, you know. And it's going to happen one of these days. You just don't want to see a lot of these students be caught in the crosshairs.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. You know, what I think is difficult, and this is happening in a lot of facets of American life, is we have a certain idea about things, and higher education in particular. You have this idea that young people are going into this institution of learning to really be enlightened, to become free thinkers, to become people who contribute to society, and also are going to acquire skills that will allow them to support themselves and their families. What you're seeing now is about 75% of that ideology going out the window, and the focus is really on, I'm going to college, when I get out, I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to get paid money. And that's about it. And that is a lot of the encouragement behind these universities cutting programs and focusing on programs where kids will just get out of school and then they'll get jobs. I mean, healthcare and IT are two of the biggest industries that we have going on these days. But the danger in doing something like this is, once you start cutting these programs that are thought of as things that are not earning as much revenue for just people who are in the workforce, you are cutting a piece out of the American culture. And once those majors are eliminated across the board, then they're probably not going to come back. You know, when you think of like dead languages, for instance, I mean, basically if you don't use it, you lose it, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not like we're talking about majors like blacksmithing, where
Right.
you know, the technology is advanced and things are irrelevant. But I mean, if you're talking about majors like philosophy, art history, you know, language, cultural learning experiences, those are significant. I mean, even if people aren't getting a whole lot of jobs as English majors or whatever majors, they should have the opportunity to acquire that knowledge and to share it with others, to get into whatever type of field it is that is useful to them. And I think what also is important to mention is that education is not being viewed as a lifelong experience where people are able to get into college, do a variety of degrees, audit courses, just take classes as needed throughout their life to broaden their horizons and to spread a wealth of knowledge. So these are really, I guess, troubling factors that I'm dealing with here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, something will change. I think these institutions are going to risk their reputation as institutions of higher learning eventually, probably more long-term than short-term, I'd imagine. And
but I mean, if everybody's doing the same thing, I feel like it's just lowering the bar for
but eventually
standards.
someone will, I think eventually people will, there will be other institutions that come up that will offer a complete education.
Mm-hmm.
And people who want that will go and get that. And these colleges will change into basically career factories.
Yeah.
Right? And it will be sad, but, you know, it's, you know, there are people who want a career factory. And
Yeah.
you know what, if that's what you want, then, you know, you should be able to go for it.
Yeah.
And people who want to actually go ahead and engage and have a learning experience will be able to do that. And that's what I hope will happen.
Well, we are going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we are going to speak with Raisha Chowdhury, who is a student at Virginia Commonwealth University and president of her Majors Club. And hopefully she'll be able to shed some light on what is happening in the area of higher learning. So stick with us, and we'll be back in a moment.